You all right over there, Katie?
Yeah.
She's having a hairball.
Cat scratch.
Okay, so before we get going, what's everybody's favorite supervillain? And you can't say the Joker because that's too...
Favorite supervillain? Oh, I don't know. Jeez, I'd have to think about that for a minute.
I'm going to go with Shredder as he appears in the 1990 TMNT live-action movie. He's kind of part... You can leave that in. That'll be great.
I like the Shredder.
Yawn. He's kind of part Darth Vader, but he's also a ninja in that movie.
Yeah.
So that's my choice. What about you guys?
Oh, I'm having a hard time thinking of one. Katie, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of one.
So you can't say the Joker, and then all of a sudden nobody has an answer.
Well, then everyone loses their minds.
Oh no, I would say Loki, but they ruined him.
Huh. Loki's a good one, though. I would probably... I guess I would have to say either Kilgore from Black Panther or Dr. Octopus, because I think they both seem like... I like nuanced bad guys that you can totally see their side. Like,
yeah.
You know, Norman Osborn is cool and all, but he's just... even though I can understand his motivations, he just went too wild. He went too feral. Whereas, you know... I have to leave those yawns in so that everyone understands why I'm laughing. Yeah, so that's my thought on it.
All right, Katie, off the dome, give us something. Yeah, I guess you said Loki. We'll go with Loki.
Loki, yeah.
He's your favorite of all time, ever.
Yep, sure. I mean, if you count villains, I guess Catwoman, but she toes a line.
So does Loki. He's in and out. He's got his foot in across the line quite a lot. So that works.
I know I've betrayed you many times before, but this time it's truly nothing personal.
So, speaking of supervillains, we watched Split by M. Night Shyamalan.
Wait, so why would you mention supervillains when this is just clearly just a standard horror movie? It has nothing to do with supervillains at all.
As we will come to find out, that is not exactly the case. What you thought was a horror movie is, in fact, the secret sequel to the 2002 film Unbreakable?
Yeah, like I was thinking. So I knew going into this that we were watching a sequel to the movie we watched last time, and that's cool and all. And even for me, it was kind of confusing, you know, most of the way through because I'm like, where the heck is Bruce Willis and where's Samuel L. Jackson? Where are the characters that we know? And then when it's dawning on me as the movie's going on and time's racking up, and I'm like, man, this is incredibly brave. This is so ballsy for them to release a movie as a sequel, but not tell you. And it's not telegraphed anywhere in the movie. Like, I think it was kind of brilliant and way ahead of its time, but also so incredibly risky that, like, what if nobody watched it? What if, what if it bombed, Like, I mean, maybe it did. I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. And I've always had that idea similar to this of, like, where you advertise a movie as one thing, but you get to it and it's, whoa, this is not, those scenes from the trailers and promotion are here, but that's not what this movie is. And this actually went for it. And I thought it was pretty cool at the time.
Yeah, and you'd have to have like a perfect storm of events to make something like this happen. So like a really small filmmaker, if, John Allen, the brand new filmmaker that's only made a little indie film so far, would never get the funding to do something like this. You'd have to be somebody like M. Night or somebody like Steven Spielberg or somebody with a lot of credential and a lot of money power behind you to be able to even get a studio to agree to something like this. So it had to be in a lot of ways the perfect storm of a lot of events, and that's, I don't know, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, what's interesting is this is kind of a comeback for him. Like his movies trajectory as far as box office and I guess his value to studios and whatnot was a little bit on a downslope. So
really,
yeah. Well, I mean, you can tell it's almost like a one location sort of film, and the budget probably was not very large at all. There's a couple of extraneous locations, but it's mostly in that basement area. But yeah, so that's sort of the circumstances around the movie, but let's get into the movie itself.
All right. So, of course, like you said, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, starring James McAvoy, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Betty Buckley are the three primary cast members, and it looks like that's pretty much. I mean, they list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like about a dozen other people in the cast list, but those three are pretty much. Now that I'm looking back on it, that's the primary part of the movie. Aside the two other teenage women, teenage girls, whatever. That's it. You know, you got 5-person cast from start to finish, pretty much.
Yeah, very small.
That's pretty incredible. It had a budget of $9 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's wow. So, I mean, I'm curious how much James McAvoy made from this movie, considering how much fucking work he put in.
Yeah, I wonder if he had like points on the gross or anything.
There's got to be something. Otherwise, I just feel bad for him because, damn, like he put in. I don't know how his process works or whatever.
He put in a lot of research time. He tried to find someone with DID to interview and could not, and I believe he had a month to prepare.
1 month?
Wow.
He took it very seriously.
1 month to prepare for a role like this that you're inhabiting.
What do you mean? Hang on,
23.
sir. Hold on, sir. What do you mean a role? He has like 23 roles.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying. A role that has, we hear about 23 different distinct personalities, but we see maybe, like a dozen, 5 or 6 of which that are
8.
very, very small, like 30 seconds or less kind of thing. But, you know, damn. Is it just me, or does stuff like this make me also go back and realize what a joke Jared Leto is?
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, you're not wrong.
Like, I am a method actor. Okay, well, this motherfucker prepared in 30 days and knocked it out of the park on like 8 or 9 different on-screen roles. So
Yeah.
shut up.
Keep your dead rats, sir.
Yeah, and I bet he didn't have to saran wrap anybody's toilet to get his point across either.
All right.
I am not someone who is loved. I'm an idea. State of mind.
This movie starts off with the ominous tone, which I love because it kind of sets what you're in the mood for as the sort of, production company logos are going on. It's just this sort of low, sort of droning. I think the music in this one is definitely a step up from Unbreakable.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that off the bat.
Oh, yeah, we'll be talking about that in a minute.
I think the first thing of note that I have here is that I like the way that the abduction right in the beginning is shot. Because it's happening around the interior of the car where we're filming, and we as the audience know and can see what's going on, but you can see how the occupants wouldn't. And what is the main character's name? Casey? Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
I have Casey, Claire, and Marsha written down as the 3
Yep.
girls. And right off the bat, Casey is exhibiting behavior of victimhood and trauma. Because he gets in the car and she notices that he's not supposed to be there first, but she just kind of locks down and she's just staring. The other girls are like, "Hey, who are you? You're in the wrong car." But she's just been still like a deer in headlights the whole time, and it's pretty apparent. Like that's my first thought when I see that. I'm like, "Oh, this girl has been through something."
And those other girls, they set the stage immediately for like the reason why they're trying to kill these 3 girls is because they're supposedly, they're well off, very pampered, they haven't had anything hard in their entire life, yada yada.
No.
And you can see that already in the 2 girls in the back seat, that you have pretty much somebody that's going to murder you, that's sitting in the front seat, that like sprayed your dad or whatever.
Excuse me, you're in the wrong car.
Yeah, they didn't even notice. They're too busy looking at their phone, and I don't remember what it was, but I just remember thinking in my head, whatever their conversation was in the background, it was generic, vapid teenage, like, stereotype. You know what I'm saying? Like,
See? It's so random. It's so weird. Yeah, you have a crush on him.
Pause
I don't get it. Yeah, go back.
Why don't you get it?
I
He's
just
like,
don't
he's
get
blind.
it.
yeah, and it's stereotypically, too. You know what I'm saying? Like, not every teenager sounds like that, so it was just very in my mind.
Yeah, yes, for them. But they were the target. Casey wasn't the target. She wasn't even supposed to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't even notice that she's in the car until she makes a noise and tries to get out.
Yeah, and she didn't, and I don't think she ever takes her phone out either at the beginning when they're just like obsessing over their phones and stuff like that too.
No,
So, she's definitely modeled to be different.
And she's just like straight Frozen.
Yeah.
I love the sort of title sequence of this. It's sort of like Hitchcockian early Friday the 13th horror movie, just big bold text and a dissonant soundtrack.
Yeah, it makes me think of like the way that credits have changed over the years and how they're kind of making a swing back, where for a while there we had these big long credits to give people time to get to their seats in the movie theater or whatever the idea was. And then now you have, for a while there we had these title sequences where they would just be one title card, or like at the bottom of the screen it would say the name of the movie. It was just very, understated. And now it's kind of like it's swinging back the other way, where we're having these big sweeping title screens again,
It is interesting to me that when they first show them in their cell waking up, there's a wide shot and there's like a bar that runs down the center of the room, and it's already separating her from them because it's two of them on a bed on the right and she's on the left, and there's a big huge black line running through the middle of the screen, and it's further enforces that, hey, she's not like other girls, right? That's the meme.
God, it sounds gross to even say that, but you're you're totally right.
But it's effective.
She's one of the good ones.
Yeah, it's effective though. It's like this person is different. This person is separated from these people, even though they're captured together. She is still separate.
Yeah, and even early on, I started looking. So like knowing ahead of this movie going in that it was based, that this is a second movie from Unbreakable being the first one, and after watching Unbreakable recently, I remember how much of a big deal color was to that movie. So I'm going into this kind of like looking for color connections and stuff. And this movie kind of threw it off because I have my feelings on where colors lie and how it does matter to this movie, but not anywhere near as much as the first one. It feels like almost, I don't know. Cause like early on when we're looking at, Casey, Anya Taylor-Joy's character, I'm seeing a lot of like green and a lot of like happy green, bright green, not dark green, not neon green or anything like that, just like a happy bright green. And then when Dennis gets into the car, he's wearing his like teal outfit, but he pulls out that bright yellow, almost like, I don't know what the color is, like a bright yellow with just a touch of brown added to it. And
mustard.
Sure. That's a great color. Thank you. But yeah, so I noticed him like the teal versus the yellow, and I thought I thought that had to be a choice. Him pulling out that handkerchief or whatever, and it's that yellow color. I'm like, there's no way this is on accident. So I started looking for that yellow, and I found it later on, but I'll get into that later. It seemed to be like when she was having her memories of her attack when she was younger.
I mean, the color is a choice. It's the other villain or whatever in the comics. If you did not pick up on that from the first movie, there's one more character introduced with the comics they show us, and that character is very much in that yellow color. And I believe it's like an animalistic villain. He's got like some fur or dots or something going on to make him animalistic-y, beastie.
Oh, so that's foreshadowing to a third villain?
Well, technically, M. Night claims that this character was in the original script for Unbreakable, but had to be excised because it made it too long. And if you think about it, think about the guy at the end of Unbreakable. It's very similar. He's got people tied up and captive, and I think he just trimmed that down to be there. But according to him, the character of Kevin Wendell Crumb was in the first draft of Unbreakable and was the final fight of that movie.
That makes it lame compared to some of the theories out there.
Yeah, I don't like him. Are you talking about being the home invader guy?
Yes, like that's the home invader guy was a toned down version of this guy in the original script.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of glad they went a different direction then. I think I'm with Katie on this, that like that could be cool, but like,
well, it would be too much. That movie's already pretty packed where it needs to be.
Yeah, in order for this character to really breathe and get us time to like appreciate who this character is, whether it's be fearful of him or sympathetic to him, that kind of thing, we need plenty of time for him to grow in front of us, or for him to develop in front of us. So like that movie, and for him to be like killed off immediately by Dunn, that would be a little, you know what I'm saying? Like, this character is too good. I'm glad that they turned this into an entire movie by himself.
Yes, but my lame comment was more, if you know the theory, if we want to get into this now or have me save it for later, of
I don't know
Kevin's
what it
origin. So when he's walking through, David, when he's walking through, I think the train station, it might be at the game. I don't remember which one. He bumps into a woman and you can hear her abusing her son.
Yeah.
That's Kevin.
Oh.
That's Kevin, and Kevin's dad is one of the men on the train. I think we supposedly see him briefly, but his dad died on that train, in the train accident. So that's the theory, and that's his origin story from the theory.
Is there plenty of evidence to connect that to? Because it does seem a little tenuous.
I think there's a little bit more in the third movie.
Yeah, in this one, when he puts the flowers at the train station, that was the most people's connection to it. I believe there's something that the man said. There's something else about the train station dude, like his suitcase or something connects him to it. And then it's just the fact that he bumps into this woman who's abusing her child, and you can hear it, and I think that's mostly what it is. But then in this movie, when he puts the flowers at the train station, that's what people are saying part of it is for his dad. In remembrance. But yeah, it's just very tangential, I guess. Nothing too concrete, but
Yeah.
That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
I might have to go back and watch that one scene from Unbreakable to get cued in on it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So Dennis, the personality of Dennis, which we don't know is a personality yet, we just think it's the guy that abducted them, comes in, and he's very tight-laced, like skinhead type. He seems like not the Nazi, but the punk version of like a skinhead. They're always buttoned up and very tight shirts and prim and proper.
The shirt buttoned up to the top, the glasses on, but the bald head. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And in good shape, probably, because he's doing a lot of moshing. And
Yeah, Dennis out there moshing and then suddenly turns into Patricia. What am I doing?
Yeah, halfway through the mosh.
So he comes in and he pulls one of the girls out, right? And it's like, oh no, shit is happening. But Casey, Anna Taylor-Joy, grabs her by the face and says, "Pee yourself," which to anyone who has lived a blessed and innocent life probably is like, what? But that's a common, from what I've heard, tactic for preventing sexual assault.
Yeah.
It's further reinforcing that Casey has dealt with something similar to what she's dealing with now in the past.
And that's, at this point, obviously, it's foreshadowing that something has happened to her, or at least like very adjacent to her, that she knows these kind of things where most people probably wouldn't as a teenage girl kind of thing. So, yeah, and obviously, spoiler to the end of the movie that we're talking about right now, but yeah, she did get, it looks like, sexually assaulted. It's implied heavily, at least. So.
And what does he tell them they are? That they're sacred food?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that sounds right.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, if I was kidnapped, I would not want to be told that I'm sacred food.
Yeah, but I mean, at this point, there's no, you see no evidence of anything supernatural. So at this point, I'm like, okay, so is he just going to kill them and like make food out of them and have each of his personalities eat them or something like that? It didn't seem like, when he said something like that, it was like, oh, so you're just gonna fucking kill these women. You didn't kidnap them to rape them or sell them into sex trafficking or to convert them to your cult. No, you stole them so that you could kill them and eat them, is what okay, gotcha. You're a cannibal. Gotcha.
I really like the angle that they're playing, that the psychiatrist kind of has a clue that something is up. And this might not be Barry, who she's talking to.
Yeah, because, I mean, you think about it, when the movie is said and done, we don't actually ever see Barry real time. We see him in one clip, right? That's it. Mm-hmm. The rest of the time that we see quote-unquote Barry, we're not seeing the real Barry. So even though, for me, like, I went back and rewatched it, and the first scene that quote-unquote Barry, which is really just Dennis pretending to be Barry, shows up at Betty's office, the one you're talking about right now, we buy into this notion of Barry because this is the only Barry that we've ever seen, but this isn't the Barry that she's seen before. So like, you know what I'm saying? That's just an interesting little thing that we as the audience have been introduced to a character and we have no reason to doubt it. And then he slowly erodes that character away. But to those that exist inside the universe, at least to Betty, that first version wasn't exactly right either. So I don't know. It's just a little interesting storytelling mechanism that they used here.
Yeah, it's effective too because you get it like as it goes on as she's questioning him. You're like, okay, this is because we already know at this point that he's got some other personalities, and it's like, okay, so they're
you see the veins popping.
They're
out.
like at war
you see
with
the
each
veins
other,
popping out in his head
Yeah.
when she's questioning him, and you see him basically like you can imagine in his head him going, "Shut the fuck up, shut the." Yeah.
right. He's just like,
no, I'm Barry.
it's
Come on,
me."
I'll put lint on my food, or I can eat this, and
What an interesting concept of being at war with yourself across your own mind.
Yeah, but it's
Sounds
like
it sucks.
is Kevin even aware? Like, does Kevin get the light ever? I don't know. That's an interesting. So Kevin is just a prisoner in his own mind, and he never is even aware of what's going on.
In this scenario, he is a prisoner. When he comes back, he asks her, what if it is still September 18th or 14th, 2014?
Right,
blah, blah, blah.
It's been 2
And
years.
she said, yeah, it's been years.
But I wonder if it's like a coma patient where like some coma patients recall during their time of their coma that they just had a very, very like back of the mind passing impression that time it had moved forward. Some of them have like very vivid memories of I remember so-and-so visiting me like 14 times and talking about the Wall Street Journal, that kind of stuff. So I'm curious what level of how much is he seeing? How much is obviously he doesn't know what year it is, so he doesn't feel the time passing, but like is he aware of all the identities? Does he ever talk to them in his mind's palace? Cuz the way it sounds there, what did she say, that they're all sitting in chairs around a light? So is Kevin in one of those chairs? Is he one of the personalities?
From the sounds of it,
Well, they've never met the Beast either, right? And the Beast is in there, and he hasn't really been seen by them.
Well, yes and no. So, this is when it gets into real life and why a lot of people really don't like this portrayal of DID, because it's not DID. So there can be other personalities within. That's still not a great way to phrase it, but there can be other personalities within someone that do not manifest. There are some that never will manifest. So is it possible that the Beast is in there somewhere and will never manifest? Yes. Is it possible that there are 50 other personalities in there and we will never meet them? Yes. So that's possible. Would Kevin be kept out of his own body for so long in a DID situation? No. In a fugue state with personalities, yes. So there are two different disorders going on there, but they are just putting it all under the umbrella of DID, which is very minor in the issues people have with this movie. But him being locked out of access to the light, I'll put it that way, is not something that normally happens with DID. He would be aware that his other personalities were in charge in the light. He would be waiting in a chair for his turn or whatever for it to come back to him. He would most of the time be in charge of his own body or that body that they're sharing.
So he would be like most of the time, and then every once in a while, one of the other 22 or whatever personalities would step into the light, and he would be aware of what they're doing. He would be watching what's happening. He just can't control it.
As the disorder progresses, and this is something we do not know all that much about, and something that like you gotta research, and like this is DM4 knowledge, and we're on DM5, and there are so many other things going on. But normally, once it is diagnosed and something that they're aware of, there are discussions within, so that everyone gets their own personal time. Everyone, at least not everyone, but the more prominent ones, I guess, for some, and I could be wrong, so please feel free to correct me if you are experiencing DID, or one of these other disorders, that it's a discussion and everyone gets their chance to have the light, and their time to be out and not stuck in their chair or however it presents for people. And it's not like someone's taking over and just locking someone away, that's a completely different scenario.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, talking about the light, I believe Hedwig, the 9-year-old boy personality, is the first one who says something about Dennis stole the light or whatever. I think that's a very cool phrase to refer to it. You know, it's like I picture. That's literally what I picture is a dark room with a bunch of chairs and like a glowing orb. It's like when you're in therapy and it's like now Kevin is holding the light, so he may be allowed to speak.
That's funny how I imagined it was just a dark room with like a dozen or so chairs, just wooden chairs around, and in the center there is a hanging light from the ceiling, and it's just like a light bulb. And then at one at a time, one of these people will stand up and stand underneath the light, and they're the one that's seen because they're in the spotlight.
That's essentially the same thing, but
yeah, I know. To me, it's just interesting how our mind eyes, we get told the same information and how we visualize it just slightly different. That's it's interesting to me.
I think that plays into your theater background, seeing it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And speaking of Hedwig, I really like the personality of Hedwig. He's just like a shitty 9-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not played childish. He is played pretty childlike, which is when adults are playing children tends to be a problem, where they go childish instead of childlike. And McAvoy pretty much nails it on most of these characters.
Well,
I'd say.
Geez, we could. I don't know. You say what you will about how they represented DID in this movie and such, because I'm curious, like what the critics say about that.
It's bad,
but there's no denying that James McAvoy did like that. That's some acting work there, you know. Like this is a resume, if anything. Like if I saw him do this, I feel like I could cast him in almost any role, period, and he'd be fine.
So the consensus is Oscar-worthy performance. James McAvoy did nothing wrong. He fucking knocked it out of the park. The writers and M. Night Shyamalan have some explaining to do. The main consensus, and this is from both the professional, like psychiatrist, psychology perspective, and those who have DID, is that they turned a disorder into into something to fear when there's nothing to fear.
Yeah, they further stigmatized it. Yeah.
Yes, that they stigmatized it.
What my counter argument to that, though, just as in I guess in fairness or all sides of whatever. Look at me here, I go both sidesing. But I'm not saying that that's not like a valid argument, but it holds more water if this was supposed to be a serious drama. But this is a supernatural superhero movie. I don't think it's intended to be a realistic depiction of anything, you know?
Right. Well, and that's where the line becomes gray, because you've got both arguments happening of people who are upset because of the betrayal and how it has affected them personally.
Yeah.
And people who are looking at it from a different perspective, who are like, well, it's not something that it is. It's a movie. It's not claiming to be a documentary. It's not claiming to be accurate in any way. It is a sci-fi, not that we're aware of it right away, super villain, superhero movie. So the issue that people are having is just that, they need to be responsible with what they're teaching people about disorders and all of that and trauma. And the other argument is that it is a movie and people need to be held accountable for their own actions and own thoughts. And if you're going to blame a movie, that's really unfair, because people need to do their own research and take care of their own opinions and education, which as a non-white person in America, I can't argue with that, because I definitely use that. I am not here to educate you about anything. I'm not here to do more work for you. So I get that argument. I get both sides of it. I don't really know where I would stand on it personally, but I understand both sides of it.
And there's something to be said about so I totally get what you're saying, Keith, about this is intended to be like a superhero movie, supervillain movie, yada yada. Totally fine. We like seeing these superhero, supervillain movies bridge into the more realistic, the more gritty view of these stories. Wonderful, awesome, great. That is their intent. And what we have learned a lot of times over and over again with public depictions of things, or if you're making a public statement about something, your intent doesn't fucking matter. The effect of what you do matters more. So, like, I hear this, and I hear even what you're saying, Katie, but about, like, you know, it's not a marginalized person's role to educate somebody that is benefiting more from the status quo. But there's something to be said about when you said that some people may have felt further marginalized by it. So somebody with DID. If a single person with DID faced increased discrimination because somebody watched this movie and got a bad opinion about what DID is, it could be argued that the intent versus the effect, the scales immediately slam down to the table on the effect side. The intent doesn't matter. The intent is all just fluff compared to what the effect was. So
Right, but that's also internet comments and opinions. Like, this is something that I would feel as a psychology random brain person would feel the need to study in terms of other things as well. Of was one thing a catalyst to make someone sit there and go, oh no, we can't do that, that's bad, or was it already opinion they held and a bunch of other things came into play and someone is using this as a scapegoat?
yeah,
Like with in the 90s when it became metal and black metal and all of that, they're serial killers. It's, you know, video games and violence is creating, you know, gun problems. Like that, there's that catalyst of media becoming the scapegoat for other people being the problem or other things being the problem. So that's more my stance on it. I understand being upset. Like, you have every right to be upset because I agree there's a lot of things in this movie that are just wrong, but it's not what it was trying to portray. So yeah. Double-edged sword.
I will say a little bit, a word that handles to something else that I'm sure we're going to talk about a little later in the movie, but maybe slightly careless in the handling of some topics. I don't think M. Night is a bad guy who's completely unaware of things, but it just seems like in his way of depicting things, it might I don't know. It seems slightly careless.
I've seen to put it in a way people can picture it. A lot of comments talking about the way he directs movies is swing away and signs. He gets a baseball bat and he swings. When he hits, he's fucking on. When he misses, oh my god, it's bad.
Yeah. So, like, my opinion on that from what you all were saying. So, like, you're absolutely right, Katie, that I'm paraphrasing you, so I might not be 100%, but basically, if somebody's watching this movie and they're basing their opinion on what DID is off of this movie, like they're going, oh, I understand what dissociative identity disorder is now because I watched this M. Night movie, then yeah, that's pretty stupid, and we shouldn't want, like, you know, we shouldn't expect people to get their definitions from pop culture. But we also know that people do, and media and that kind of stuff has a pervasive way of invading your brain. Cause I remember thinking back to the classes that we had on media and stereotypes and looking at like Good Times and what Good Times did for black culture in the 70s and some black culture. And that's the hard part, is that black culture, a lot of times they looked at that at the time and said, we finally have representation on TV. This is awesome. This is great news for our community. But really what it did was it stereotyped black families to white people. So white people all thought that all black people talked like that and acted like that. And they were expecting black people to be like, dynamite and stuff like that. And it was like, no. So you've kind of poisoned the culture, even though you're opening a door to this culture. You're showing them such a weird version of that.
Yeah.
Of that. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, it's not to cut you off, but it's it's not just the DID discussion being had with this movie, which makes it interesting, is that how it was picked apart. Like I said, they absolutely gave James McAvoy his accolades. Like, that man deserved so much. The way he even shifts is spot on. Like, his jaw shifts placement. His head position will shift placement. Like, he does so much that it's so good. But no, it's down to even the way they portray OCD. He doesn't have OCD. He has OCPD. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder.
What's the difference?
OCD is more like bad thoughts and rituals so that things don't happen. OCPD is being obsessed with things being in line and perfection and clean and cleanliness. They're two different things, which is what he displays. He wants clean, he wants cleanliness, he wants things in order, he wants them the way that he would like them to be. And as someone who has OCD, I understand that. They're two different things. And he does not have OCD. He's not doing things in a ritualistic manner so the bad things don't happen. He doesn't have to touch a light switch 76 times before he opens the door for something to not occur.
It's just when something gets messy.
Not to stereotype it, but
it upsets him over much.
Yes, he is an OCPD, which a lot of people don't even know that there are two different disorders there.
Good catch. I would never even picked up on that, so cool.
Yeah, it also comes down to the therapist, the way it's portrayed. That like she's a great. That's another thing. People love the portrayal. She did a wonderful job. Script wise, whatever. They did a great job with the therapist. Except they made it something that is dangerous, which like it is dangerous. Being a teacher is dangerous, but they made it
being a pizza delivery
dangerous
driver
in the way
is dangerous.
To your patients are gonna flip on you and attack you or something like that. That's it. That was the other thing with DID is not only like making it the betrayal and all of that. It's just that some of the personalities within someone could be criminalistic and bad. Yeah. It's not even that they're bad people or that they made them criminals. They made them a pedophile and a cannibal and which thriller horror movie in this universe, like, yeah, he's the beast. He's a super villain. Like, we don't know that until the end. So those are a few of the other issues people had with it besides the portrayal of DID.
Yeah.
Sounds like your kitty cat.
I was going to say, as a side note, your cat is definitely vocal.
She's real mad. Always.
So we're with Hedwig. I think Casey is again exhibiting really smart behavior in trying to convince Hedwig that they said he's coming for you to get him out of the room to go, talk to Patricia and Dennis, the other in control personalities, and they use that opportunity to try and break through out of the ceiling. Their little air duct crawl chase sequence, but it's fruitless. Which
it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you have somebody that is like locked you in a cage. Like, you don't even know where the fuck you are. You're probably underground somewhere. Are you just gonna crawl through some ductwork, John McClane? Like, where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, it's life or death. It would not matter.
I have the same thought, and then I was like, well, you got to try and do something, because if you just stay in there, then
I know, and I understand it from the captive's point of view that you got to try something. You don't want to just sit there and fucking let somebody kill you. But I'm looking at it from the audience point of view, going, there is like all the tension that's in the scene was gone, except for the fact, like, I wonder what's going to happen to her when she gets fucking caught. That's the only thing. Like, there's no way she's getting out from this. There's absolutely zero way this is working. You're not climbing out again. What are you, a goddamn splunker? Are you a gopher? Are you an earthworm? You're gonna crawl your way up inch by inch to the surface?
I will say to M. Night's credit, that scene is so scary when he confronts her by the lockers and he's like, you got your sweater dirty, remove it. And it's like, there's no blood or violence. There's not even nudity. I mean, she is down into her, her underwear. Like, he makes her take her top off. But it's just the tension of all that and the situation. And I think my fists were clenched when I was watching it because it was so like what is he gonna do? You know what I mean? That's you get in the mind of these people that are captives, like, what the fuck is this guy going to do to us?
Absolutely. And I think that starts with when she's in the locker. So we're seeing it in the locker and we're seeing through the slit and we see his eyes staring right at her through the slit. One of those where you can't pretend like he doesn't see you. He's looking right at you kind of thing. And that's like anybody that's played hide and seek. That's the scary moment when somebody looks right at you and they know exactly where you are kind of thing. So, that gives that whole scene that point of tension that it started with that and it just stayed there. And you don't know if he's going to assault her. You don't know if he's going to kill her. You don't know. But it also...
because he has the reputation, too.
Yeah, exactly. He's the one out of all the personalities. Even though we don't know much about these personalities, we know that this is the one that if there was one to do something, this is probably the one that would do it. But also I'd like to point out here that by this point in the movie, we've already established a visual language of looking through slits, looking through very tiny spots. So like, time and time again, we are given a glimpse into this character, into Dennis or Patricia or one of the other personalities, and you can only see them through a tiny little slit. And I don't need to like lay out the visual metaphor there too much, I don't think, but I think that was kind of like a big theme through the movie is what do you see when you take a big picture and you look through just a tiny little slit? And maybe that could be argued that's a way to understand DID. You know, like this is a family of people living in my head, and all you see is a tiny little cut section at a time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So then we get it's kind of the exposition dump that links us to we're in the realm of the supernatural, with the therapist giving her talk about how the physicality of the different personalities is different. There's one that needs to take insulin when the others don't require it, and how maybe it's supernatural and this is a next evolution of human beings. That's where we start to get into the fantastical. Can I interrupt here and ask
you all, like, as somebody, I admit I could look this up myself, I just haven't yet, but like, is that real? Is that, with people with DID, does one need insulin and one doesn't?
Yes.
One is allergic to bee stings, the other one isn't? Fucking seriously?
Yes.
Really?
It is absolutely a real possibility.
When
is
you
it
say
something
real possibility,
that's also up for discussion, because yes and no. For some people, it does not have, like, I don't know. So yes and no, because there are some who will have personalities who are Japanese, for instance, who could fluently speak Japanese, but the host, I'm going to say host because original just sucks. The host does not have the knowledge to speak Japanese, therefore it's not in the brain for them to access somewhere, so they can't speak Japanese.
Yes, that is a confirmed thing.
There have been, at least from what I remember in the little bit of like research I did after watching this to just try and confirm, there have been cases of people, or at least one case, I'll say it that way, of someone with DID who did have some personalities who were blind and some that were not. Some regained. They figured out that there was something going on with one of the frontal cortex something, and some of the personalities regained their sight and some did not. So yeah, it is very much a possibility, and has happened for them to have certain medical issues that others do not. So that was another thing that needed to be debunked for some people, where especially in those that have training and those who learned on DM4 and DM3 and everything else, who are going, that's not a thing. Two personalities cannot share the light at the same time. They can. There is no such thing as a rapid switch. There is, but it's rare. And the issues are not the issues, but the possibility of being able to have certain medical issues or certain knowledge or abilities another personality doesn't have is real. So some of them, like even physically, some can do other things that others cannot. So the Beast being able to climb walls and be super strong, James McAvoy is absolutely fucking jacked. Is that something that Patricia's gonna do? No. Does he have the ability to be able to do that? Yeah. I'm looking at that man. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he could rock climb.
Yeah, but that's why, like, I'm really curious to where, because that's incredibly fascinating. Specifically, that one could be allergic to bee stings and the other could not, or the cholesterol goes up with one identity and the other one, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I would want to, like, the way you're talking, it sounds like there have been very few cases, or maybe like one case that does this. So I mean, I'm not worried about the movie taking some liberties. We have superheroes in this universe, so that's totally fine. I'm just curious, like, how much of that translates. And that, again, comes back to our earlier point about media versus this depiction of DID. Somebody might see somebody with DID and think, oh my god, you have superhuman powers. I could shoot you and get away with it. And then we have that scene from Unbreakable with a little kid pulling a gun on somebody and not knowing if, So that's the shit that I'm curious about. I think it's fascinating, and also the stuff that can come back to bite you if somebody that's suffering from a cognitive disorder of their own, or somebody that's going through emotional distress and they watch this movie and they get the wrong impression, that kind of thing.
So after her little exposition TED talk, the therapist then leads us to our M. Night cameo of the film with the security guy. After I think air quotes Barry visits again, and she kind of confronts him a little bit harder about, are you really Barry? Are you not Dennis? And that's what gets her to have the security guy looking at the footage, where she determines that Barry would not just walk through that turned over trash.
I will say, going back and watching this movie a second time afterwards, every scene with the therapist and Barry creeped me out a little bit, knowing that this woman that is dedicating her life and all of her mental power and her extensive education, apparently, she's going to be killed by that man. That how her story ends is the person she's trying to help is going to kill her in a matter of a couple of days when this movie starts. The first time you see her, my mind went, oh, you're going to die by his hand soon enough.
And it's not that's the other sucky thing, is it's not like she's a shitty person or she's doing this out of like a monetary thing. She's trying to get rich off it. She genuinely cares about her patients and her people. She's setting it up because she knows she's an older woman to have someone else take care of her if something happens, or take care of her patients if something happens to her. Like, it's a genuine care for her patients and this thing she has dedicated her life
makes it
to.
so much better as far as like building him to be a villain, because they could have made her like somebody that's chasing fame and fortune and using him as a platform to do that.
Right.
But they didn't, and she always, every time he's like, is anybody listening? She kind of downplays that with more like, I'm not worried about the press or anybody else worrying about us. I'm more worried about you, Barry, that kind of thing. So there's a definite choice.
Well, and that's the other really good thing that they did with her character, or the actor who stepped in, may have stepped in and said, hey, I'm going to do this way. I don't know everything that happened, but even the trash scene where she's like, she could easily have been a character who was like, no, I don't believe that he has these issues. I think he's just making it up. But she goes down even to try to debunk her own suspicions or confirm them, and she confirms them. And it's not that like, oh, he walks through the trash and that's something that Barry would do. No one would just walk through the trash like that. They'd walk around it. An entire trash can's tipped over? No, you'd walk around that. You wouldn't just walk through a whole huge pile of trash.
Yeah, he's like kicking a cup and he doesn't notice it.
It's a very performative, very performative behavior that's happening. And she immediately is like, no, I'm correct. We're fucked. That's bad.
Yeah.
We got to figure this out.
I thought that was a nice touch, because even the first time I watched it, of course, we watched it together, so I didn't want to pause it and go back and rewatch it. But I didn't really see what her eyes had picked up on. So the second time watching it, I actually watched it like intentionally and watched his feet and stuff like that. And I picked up on what she was saying, that like basically he walked through and like it looked like a styrofoam cup got stuck between his legs, and he just moved his legs in a way that he pretended like he didn't notice it. And that's not how any human, you would notice this cup between your legs and you would kind of like, oh crap, and kind of like pick your foot up a little bit more or something, like. Yeah, so I thought that was a nice little touch that maybe it was almost too subtle, because my first time watching it, it wasn't like I was distracted. I was watching it, and I still didn't pick up on exactly what she was saying the first time. I had to see it the second.
Which is that there are a lot of subtle, nice touches in this movie. It's just blended with some not so great things.
Yeah, some over-the-top bombastic choices, which make for a good story. Like, it was definitely entertaining, kept you on the seat of your...
I mean, it made it a box office hit, so...
Yeah, it was.
There's that, but I don't know. It still kind of sucks in a lot of ways, because, like, those performances, it is a great movie. In terms of movie, if you take out content and shittiness of some of the stuff, that it is a great movie. The performances are on, the cinematography, like, is great. Like, they did a good job making a movie.
Especially with the limited funds $9 million for a movie this big, that's in some of these movies James McAvoy should have made like $5 million by himself.
I understand. This must all seem so unsatisfactory for you, but we are doing the best we can.
So we get another escape attempt by the girls whenever Patricia makes them some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they do the old wrestler move with the chair over the head, and that ends up with now
all of a sudden I'm seeing it in wrestling. I'm hearing like the Jerry
dun, dun, dun,
over the top. He's
dun,
over
dun,
the top.
Dun.
Oh my goodness!
Is it? It is. It's Marsha with a steel chair. But this ends in now they're all separated and confined in three.
And also,
different
like,
spaces.
why didn't she just stay there and keep hitting her with the chair. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, just murder her. You know what? The other 22 personalities, they'll be busy. They won't be coming to bother you. If you kill this one, you're fine.
Right. Well, I mean, this is supernatural, so maybe not. You know, who knows?
And they just pick up on it, like one of his hands just kind of, he starts pulling an ash from Evil Dead. His hand separates and grows a whole other person.
Yeah. And I have written down here, I didn't know what it was for, but I'm kind of scrubbing through to see. I have written, his transformation is creepy, and this is when the third time Barry is with the therapist and finally reveals himself to be Dennis. And
such a good scene. That was so well done.
Like, quote unquote, Barry is like all slouched over and has sort of like loose arms, and then when he's finally owning up to it, he like sits up straight and his complete demeanor changes, and it's kind of chilling.
Yeah, he doesn't like being Barry. You can see it right in that moment, how uncomfortable he's like, oh, finally, I can go back to being who I want to be, kind of thing. Oh, so well done. And Dennis is creepy, you know? Like,
yeah.
I mean, and there's something to be said here, too, about, like, when you're picking names for these different characters, you know, from a narrative point of view. I'm not saying Kevin didn't pick his names or anything. I'm saying, like, from a narrative point of view. Barry, for the guy that's very outgoing and that is, he has slightly gay vibes, and he's very into fashion and all this stuff. Him being named Barry, fine. All the characters' names kind of, Patricia being this very uptight, you know, Victorian high neck woman kind of thing, totally makes sense. Dennis, like, I'm sorry, like, I thought Dennis, like, I thought that was an odd choice of name because I'm thinking Dennis the Menace is the first thing that comes to mind for me. So, like, I'm thinking this is just, like, some blonde kid that constantly pranks his Republican neighbor. You know, like, he's not dangerous. He's just gonna replace your dog food with antifreeze. Oh, wait, that is probably pretty dangerous.
Why do you do this?
But, yeah, go ahead.
Then we get on to what is one of the scariest scenes in my mind, where she's again smartly trying to use Hedwig to get out of her cell and, hey, take me to your room, I want to see your window, which turns out to just be a sad drawing on the wall, his window. She was thinking she was going to use it to escape, but when he puts on that music and it's just the wide shot and he does that like jittery like rush up to the camera while he's dancing to like loud overwhelming dubstep, it's just the idea of standing there and knowing the situation in her shoes and seeing that, I don't know, something about that scares the shit out of me. It's like he's just being a happy little boy, and it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, and you know what the funny thing is that so the whole movie we're chasing this idea of the beast will manifest and the beast will come through and we're assuming the beast is going to kill a lot of people or do a lot of bad things. The beast has this air of violence and fear around him. But it could be argued that Dennis is the beast for most of the movie. Like when we're watching this scene, this is a good example of that. We're expecting that beast, quote unquote, to come out at any moment. Not the same beast that Dennis is talking about, but a beast for us nonetheless. So for her, that beast was present the entire movie, whether or not he manifested yet or not.
Right.
With her background and everything, which is another point that people like to talk about in this movie, which we can come to at some point. But her background in the movie would absolutely make her fear Dennis more than the beast. Physically, yeah. When someone's like crawling at you on the ceiling and they're all fucking veins popping out and they're growling. No, you're going to be scared, but she is far more afraid of Dennis than she is.
And I mean, that's evident because like around the other personalities, she's looser, but whenever Dennis is around her, she is extremely guarded and tight, and she wraps her arms around herself a lot when Dennis is there.
Which is,
and she's covering up the section that if she showed, obviously the spoiler at the end, that if they saw the cuts on her, they would have seen her in a different light anyways, but she's like instinctively covering that up because that's what you do is you cover up your spots that you're most insecure about and that kind of stuff.
Which on another note, and I just remembered this, part of why I was so interested in watching this movie in the first place when it like first came out was James McAvoy. It just looked like a great performance, but the DID itself, because the beast, and there are non-human personalities that do manifest with DID. I was expecting it to be a non-human personality, which I thought was going to be very fucking cool that they touched on that and put that into the light. And like in a sense it is, but it's not really. It's a super villain thing, which is fine because it is the movie. But yeah,
it would have been cool if it was like a wolf
thing.
or a bear or something like that. You know, even if it was a non-real like a manticore or something like that. Would have been fucking
because
cool.
they do exist. They're the fantasy animal, whatever that does happen, which is why I was very intrigued by it. Because when he started talking, I was very disappointed because they're nonverbal. Usually, it's a physical way that they will communicate or a meow if they're a cat. Like they usually it is nonverbal and a physical communication when a non-human personality manifests itself.
Well, and so, on that note, did anybody else, like, just now when you're talking about this way, I just now connected this movie to Red Dragon, and I think we watched that before together, so we're all familiar with that, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot that connects to Red Dragon with this. Some of his physicality is very reminiscent of when, the Red Dragon is standing there disrobing and like flexing his muscles and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just now, when you were talking that way, I'm thinking, oh, so the character from Red Dragon, changing into, I don't even know if he used the word the beast, but it sounds like these two beasts are they're very similar. One is obviously more rooted in like Christian lore and mythology and stuff like that, or whatever. And this one is, James McAvoy's is more, just in, the evolution of the species. So I guess you could say it's a religion versus science yet again.
Yeah. I mean, kind of the whole personality, not to derail where we're at story-wise, plot-wise in the movie, the whole beast personality itself is supposed to be, a culmination and mixed up, mashed up things of the animals and stuff he's seen and worked with in the zoo for the last 10 years. That's why he can climb like that. That's why he can do X, Y, and Z. He's picked it up from animals. But
he doesn't borrow the personality of those animals. He still has the personality of a human, just the physical characteristics of it.
Yeah. She gets the walkie-talkie from Hedwig, who's like, I got this, it's pretty cool, and reaches out, gets somebody, and they're like, well, who's playing on the phone or whatever, the classic, which sucks. For her. Another movie where we have one black man and he's bad at his job. I'm like, God damn it. Yeah,
which is
they show him at
funny
the end.
Because like if they wanted to put little like Easter eggy historical accuracies of like when, and I know it's just basing out off a voice of guessing this man's race or whatever, but if they wanted to make it a stereotypical, like, yes, you can tell from his voice this is a black man and he's being confronted with a very serious situation, he doesn't take it seriously. Anytime a black person has been confronted, like a black man has been confronted with a woman who's escaped from being captured in a basement or whatever it is, their reaction is, oh shit, they're talking to me. This is very serious. I need to help this young lady. And they do. Yeah. Like there have been multiple cases where someone has escaped from a basement or being held captive, found the first person they saw and it was a black man and he went, oh shit, I'm getting you help. Like this is serious.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we do end up
easily
seeing the man.
Could have put that in there.
And just to verify, we do see this man's skin color just because we see him later on in the movie. But I definitely made a note of it. I'm like, come on, guys. Like,
for the way that they put little Easter eggs and shit into the first movie, they could have done a little better with those in this one.
Yeah.
Then we get to my least favorite part of the movie is the reveal of her backstory of how she was assaulted, which I have some problems with this, and it's hard to quantify because nothing I feel like nothing unacceptable is shown, and it's rather tame, but it still feels like too much for me for some reason.
It's lampshading. It's classic lampshading. They're using something traumatic to further the story for a character, or to give the character the nuance. And that's fine. Like, there are a million things that you can choose for trauma that happens in this little girl's life. But you're choosing to imply sexual assault. And it's lampshading. The definition of lampshading is whenever you have something very, very big and controversial, something that could potentially trigger people in your audience, but you don't actually address the subject that you're bringing up. Do they in this movie ever talk about sexual assault of children? Do they really deal with the trauma that a child victim of this kind of assault deals with? No, they don't really talk about that at all. They just use it as a narrative point to go, oh, look at the scary thing that happened, like murdering a wife in an action movie.
Yes and no, I understand the lampshading of it, because there is lampshading, but it's a dynamic of showing childhood trauma, because they've both experienced it. The ways that you can handle your childhood trauma, which there have been discussions about DID and it having to be trauma related, and sometimes it's not trauma related, or you aren't aware that you experienced trauma. So there's some back and forth with that one. But it's comparing the trauma, how they've dealt with it, and how sexual assault victims sometimes will deal with it. I can see how they nuanced it into her character. Yes, it plays into her personality and how she's handling things. The way she handles each person she encounters with James McAvoy is fucking brilliant. And exactly how someone who does deal with trauma and walks on eggshells 24/7 would be trying to deal with people is to downplay it, be on their best side, play up to the things they would like you to do just to survive. And she does a wonderful job talking to all of these people.
And by the way, we need to give credit for Anya Taylor-Joy's performance too. Like,
I love her.
She does so well in this. I do enjoy her in a lot of things. I don't know, maybe that's maybe it's because she's pretty and I have blinders on, but she does an amazing job in this movie, and I think she probably got overshadowed or looked over because of all the awards heaped on James McAvoy or whatever. But just for the record, she did an amazing job too.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a trauma thing back and forth.
Yeah. Also to that point of the lampshading, it is clearly lampshading, but they do touch on how childhood trauma affects, because we get revealed, they show some scenes of his mother, right? It's like two different paths that that can happen from childhood trauma. Like, he is a result of childhood trauma, but the way they show it, it's probably maybe 30 seconds too much, and it just feels a little icky, and it goes back to my further word of carelessness.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I understand, but that's also like, be uncomfortable. I understand, but a lot of people were their complaints about it, that all of it was just completely unnecessary. None of it was needed, and I disagree with that, because if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have any of her story. You wouldn't have her growth at the end of it, of like, oh yeah, your uncle's here to pick you up, and her being like, I'm not getting out of this fucking car.
Yeah,
we're gonna have a chat.
I agree. Some of it is needed. I feel there was just a little too much, but I do like that they show that she immediately pulled a gun on them.
Yeah,
I'm with you all that it's not the worst case of lampshading I've ever seen. It just felt like, I don't know. I'm very sensitive about media that will serve an unintended consequence of titillating those that actually want to do the evil things.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody that is of a certain persuasion will watch this and get ideas, or watch this and be excited by those scenes in the movie. And I don't like including that stuff in movies, unless you're actively you're making it a major point of narration, which I guess you could say they made it like a secondary point of narration, or a motivation for her to move the story forward. But it feels very much it's in the same realm as Bury the Gays, or the action movie where the wife is raped and murdered at the beginning of the movie, and that's the only interaction we see with the husband and wife throughout the movie. Now, the rest of the movie, the wife only existed to provide motivation by being raped and murdered, so that the main character now can go do the actual story and be the hero, that kind of thing. That's what it kind of felt like a little bit, but yeah, it's all right. It could have been much worse. I've seen much worse.
Yeah, and it could have been much worse. It could have been handled better. I just wanted to call it out because it gave me a little bit of the ick.
Yep, absolutely.
And so then we come home to our therapist coming home with what is, I guess, dozens, maybe hundreds of "I need you, I need you, I need you" on her computer. From
that was creepy. That was creepy.
And this kind of sets the end game, right? Because now she's gonna go check on him.
She's going to his place, not waiting. Yeah.
Right. And he does the spray on her and takes her to his lair, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
And she gives a really good performance here of some, like, because, like, I know she's acting, but I'm watching this person acting like they're not afraid and try and maintain their composure, but I can tell that they are.
Yep.
Very, very well done on her behalf. And she's also pretty smart too. She stuffs that little handkerchief in the door so that it won't be able to fully lock.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch. I was like, I couldn't figure out exactly why she was doing that at first, but then I was like, oh, that's a nice little touch. And just to let you know a little bit about this actor, seeming as you brought it up, as I mentioned earlier, her name is Betty Buckley. She has won a Tony Award for her role as Grisabella in the Broadway production of Cats. She's won an Olivier Award, 2 Daytime Emmys, 2 Grammy Awards. She's in the American Theater Hall of Fame. So this person you went, wow, she did a really good job acting that. Yeah, I guess she's considered one of the finest actors of stage in the last 40 years or so. So yeah, good for her. I'm glad that somebody like me that I was not as familiar with Betty Buckley. I've never seen Cats. I'm not familiar, cool. Yeah, good job.
Just trying to figure out why she looks so familiar.
Yeah,
That's
good
cool.
job, Mrs. Buckley. And she's 76 years old, still alive, living in Fort Worth, Texas. So, and she's a music teacher.
And so this is now. I feel I don't know if he like puts a lot. I'm talking about M. Night. If he puts a lot of stock in criticisms, the end of this movie almost feels like an answer to our criticisms of Unbreakable, where there's a lot more going on and it's not overly drawn out pacing to get to the action. Like, we're eating people and chasing people through hallways and stuff, and it's actually a pretty well done tense ending sequence. But man, let's talk about his transformation into the Beast, because there's a few aspects of this that are just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
Did they shoot those scenes last and have him like work out and be, because he looks bigger. He's got to be like fresh after a workout and after bulking up more than the other scenes, because his frame is even bigger than Dennis or Patricia or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to how they did that, because
there's a certain amount of play that you can do with like working with your hydration and your level, like what bodybuilders call the pump. If he goes in post pump, then he will look visibly bigger, just because your muscles.
And the only CGI part of his transformation is the veins that appear on him. But I feel like I watched this motherfucker expand like live. You know what I mean? Like he stands up and he like his shoulders are out, and it's like, holy shit.
It had the opposite effect, to borrow off what I was saying earlier about Red Dragon. It had the opposite effect of the bad guy in Red Dragon, Ralph Fiennes or whatever, because with Ralph Fiennes, he's like, you will see my transformation. And then he does it, like, he takes off his shirt and he flexes and he goes, do you see? Do you see? And I'm just like, yeah, you've got a tattoo and you're flexing. I see. Like, whatever. I am transforming. I'm like, yeah, you're transforming into a very cringy person, my friend. So yeah, this was the opposite of that, where it's like, he didn't even say, do you see? He's just like looking at you, like, watch what's happening to me. And then you see all these veins popping out and shit like that. And it was like, oh, this is what I wanted to see in Red Dragon, but that's not what that story was. This story is like, oh, that's kind of creepy. Now he's become a supervillain. And you're like, do bullets even work on him? You're in the same position that you were with Dunn in the first movie, where you're like, I don't know if bullets are enough to kill this guy.
They do because they give you just enough to explain his childhood trauma when the therapist says, say his full name, Kevin Wendell Crumb, and that will, bring him up that personality for a time period and buy you some time. Yeah. And when she says his name, they show that one little scene of the mom like swinging a coat hanger going, Kevin Wendell Crumb. Like, that's the when your mom is mad at you.
Yeah.
You get the middle name. And so
that shock and trauma.
Right.
Yeah, which yes, can happen, but is not something that does happen with DID all the time. So yeah, it could have been like a trauma trigger for him to bring him back, but it's not something that necessarily happens all the time.
Well, and I think it affects even those of us that like, I mean, I don't have DID as far as I know, but I think it even affects those of us that like everybody that's had a childhood that your parent may have stepped over the line and gotten a little bit too angry with you, or they raise their voice at you and they say your name in a way. I can imagine that if that parent was also chasing me down with a fucking coat hanger, that just hearing your name might make you pee a little.
Right.
Or, you know,
Or
like,
freeze in place, you know?
Right.
yeah. It sends you through a little PTSD trigger right then and there as soon as you hear your full name.
Just pointing it out that's another inaccuracy people have issues with within the movie, because that's not how DID usually works. It's not going to pull someone. It'd be like walking up to you after a show and calling you your character's name and expecting you to switch. Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
Like, well, can it happen? Do people with DID have personalities? Like, you walk up to someone named Lucy and start talking to Jeff. Will Jeff maybe come out and talk to you and say hi? Or Lucy let Jeff come out because you're asking to speak to them? Yeah. But is it something where fuck no.
Like,
no, you're talking to me right now. Thanks.
It's like, I remember when I played Aslan in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and as I was meeting the audience out front afterwards, I had those two older women that started praying to me, literally praying to me as if I were Jesus Christ. They started saying, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and one of them got down on one knee and started doing the cross, and I'm sitting here like, I've got the nervous laughter face going on, like, like I'm an atheist playing a role in community theater, lady, but sure, just go ahead and pray to me in public, that works. Imagine now if I was like, I absolve you of all your sins. Go rob a bank, you know?
Yeah, especially someone who's been in a fugue state for years. I don't think that would have worked. Maybe.
Yeah.
We talked about how we wondered, you know, is the beast going to be hairy? It's kind of there's a little bit of I feel like it's a nod to the whole werewolf transformation thing when Kevin Wendell Crumb does surface and he's like, okay, there's a shotgun there. The shells are in my locker. Kill me before I transform again. You know, it's kind of that whole mythos of where you have lucidity for enough time to say, hey, kill me. I can't stop myself.
And what a great twist to be in as the audience member, that this person that we've been rooting against for the last hour and a half, I'm now rooting for you.
It's very weird. It's like, oh, this guy.
Yeah.
I want more of this guy, you know? I want to save him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the motherfucker climbs on like super smooth rock wall, and now we're firmly cemented into supernatural territory. And that's terrifying. Him crawling on the fucking ceilings and shit. That scene where he's coming down the tunnel, smashing the lights.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he doesn't...
Yeah, the light scene. That was really well done.
We don't actually see him do much of anything except for climb shit. And it's terrifying.
Yeah. This is the scene where you're looking down this long tunnel, and then, like, the three lights, and then you see him on the ceiling, and then pop, the first light goes, and then pop, and then the second light goes. Oh, just leaving it there. And like you could stop it after the second light and my brain will fill in the blanks, but no, we stopped and we watched the third light hit too, and then we hear the skittering afterwards, and it's like it puts you in that mode where you're like, he could be right on top of you and you wouldn't understand.
I really appreciate how it's both impressive but also grounded when he's like bending the bars. It's like it's slow and it's not like, you know, bombastic, but hey, those motherfuckers are bending, and if he keeps at it, he is going to get in.
And then that's where he sees the fact that she is quote unquote broken.
Yeah.
Which there's something to be said about that too. Obviously, the villain is the one saying it, so we're not supposed to take it as the gospel truth, but it is implied that the fact that because she is quote unquote broken, she is savable, and that's why she lived. It wasn't like all of her efforts. It wasn't some master plan that she had. It was because she was abused when she was younger is why she lived now.
Which is also something people are trying to figure out what he meant by it, or what the meaning is of why he stops. Is it because his trauma? Kevin inside the trauma recognized trauma and went, oh,
yeah,
one of us?
That's exactly it.
Or
that's
is it just because they recognize that she
it's both because he
thinks
people who have not had to go through adversity are not worthy of life because it's carefree. They haven't overcome anything. And like it's another one of those things where, hey, I understand that adversity builds character. It makes you more empathetic and more understanding of situations that because until you've been in a situation, it's foreign to you and you don't have a hold on it. So it gives you a whole new perspective on things, and that's like, you are worthy of your life. I'm not going to kill you because you have already experienced life and it has changed you, and you're not some vapid little clueless person who has everything handed to them and no struggle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of what's an interesting twist to the end, because obviously they picked these 3 girls because they're supposed to be like trauma free and they're just skating through life and having everything handed to them. And then it turns out that one of them isn't. But again, that becomes the criticism, because like you said, not every movie, not every story has to have a message, but there should be some inherent message. And it appears the message in this movie is the only people that really matter, and the people that actually have a life worth telling the story to are the people that have had trauma happen to them. And I think, obviously that the reality of life is that a lot of us go through trauma. Most people go through trauma at some point in their life, but isn't the ideal of like progress to try to lessen that trauma? Like we don't want to glorify trauma. We want to remove trauma and heal trauma, that kind of stuff,
Well, and that's the thing. She's not supposed to be there. She's not even friends with those girls. So she just gets stuck there.
True.
He's tracking 2 girls. He decides those 2 are the ones that he could take because they need to learn a lesson, blah, 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 whatever it is. So, another random bit that like, I fucked up.
I didn't even think about that until you just said that. Yeah, good point.
I will also point out that it's impressive, just touching back on the bending the bars thing. I believe that's after he's taken 2 point-blank shotgun blast to the chest.
Yeah.
So it's like
we're in full supernatural.
So if that
mode,
guy's doing that after that, you're fucked.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the sort of quote unquote power level sort of thing that we saw in Unbreakable, where he's lifting the weights, but he's still struggling with it, but he accomplishes it. It's not like Superman just not even an effort. There is effort involved in what he's doing, but he's still achieving.
Yeah, just like
he's still achieving something that no ordinary person could achieve.
And I noticed at the end there when he's like sticking his face through the bars and he's talking to her, and that's where he's revealing that because she's broken, he's going to let her go. Like, what personality do you think that was? Who was that was talking? Is
that's
that the Beast?
Yeah,
talking?
I think that's the Beast.
Okay, because you know who it sounds like to me. It sounds like a lot like Patricia.
Interesting.
Like the way that he talks, the way that his face is formed. Like looking at that face, it doesn't look like Dennis. It doesn't look like Barry. It doesn't look like Hedwig. It looks like Patricia. Like the way he forms his face different for and what a marvelous acting job that I'm having this conversation with you. That the shape of this man's face between the different characters, you know what I'm saying?
I can't tell who he was really right here.
Yeah, and part of it is because I think he's supposed to be this personality F, and I'm going, no, he looks like personality C because his face is formed in a certain way. Like, and most actors are going, my face is formed one way. That's all I get. And this motherfucker now has like 8 different, So again, I'm more throwing applause at Mr. McAvoy or McElroy or whatever his name is. Maybe I should remember his name if I'm trying to give him
Macklemore.
Yeah, Mr. Billy Macklemore. Good job.
Let's just
Billy.
call him Pitbull.
There you go.
So yeah, he scampers off like a wild dog into the night, and she gets rescued. I do like that they, because I was worried because she's in the cop car, and they've expressed that she lives with her abuser, and it's like, well, fuck, they're just about to send her right back to that, but they thankfully address that where she's like, your uncle's on his way, and she gives that police officer the look, and the police officer then has like an something's going on there.
Yeah, but again, this felt lampshady?
Yeah, it's not enough. This is a case of not enough.
She should have said, like, even if they just put her looking at the cop and the cop looking at her, and then all we hear is her go, no.
Yeah.
Okay, good, good. Now you've at least said that she is going to stand up for herself. Where we left it, she's looking at the cop pleading, but she's not saying anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So that means she's going to go, like, if
It's-
the cop can't do anything off of a look, the cop needs to be told there's something wrong. You know what I'm saying?
I get it's implied that now she's going to speak up about that, but they don't show you that when they showed you other stuff. So it's not
But
weighted.
is it like how many times? Like, yeah, you could argue that it's implied that she says something, but I think that your brain is filling in more blanks than is shown you on the screen, because on the screen all we see is her struggling, and what we know from real life at least is that 9 times out of 10, or I don't know what the exact stats are, but in a predominant majority, most people when they're put in this situation, they don't rock the boat. Right. Even the entire movie was a series of her selecting the path of least resistance. Like, she wasn't fighting against them unless she had to. At one point when Patricia says, go back to your room and close the door behind you, and she kind of sits there for a second, but she does exactly what she's fucking told.
Sure.
Why are we going to think that she's going to do something different at the end? Well, she had character growth. Well, you didn't show me the actual growth. She just ran for 2 hours,
Right. That is how I read it, and that's how I'm sure it's intended. But if you're just looking at what they give you on screen, for all we know, she's just shipped right back to her.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it feels lampshady. So we saw the story of a little girl that was sexually abused and now lives with her abuser and just goes back to him, and she's 17, so maybe she won't have to deal with it too much longer. God, what a great reason to bring up sexual abuse of children, so that you could tell the story of, hey, it usually ends up with nobody getting in trouble. Thanks for telling me that movie. Thanks.
I do believe that might be addressed in the next one, but in a vacuum, we didn't have the next one, and that's where this one lies.
That's what I said. I just wish they would put just one little tiny thing at the end. Her saying no, or, even if she said, it's her speaking
Right.
up. I can fill in the blanks more that you've already put me down a path. But where it was, she was standing at a fork in the road and we didn't see her choose a path.
And in the other way, that is realistic. It makes you uncomfortable, but it's absolutely realistic.
Yeah, it's realistic. But again, if you're going to have a realistic depiction of sexual violence towards children, then you should really lean into that and show a nuanced position and have, you know what I'm saying? Have a purpose. Don't just have it be the only reason why it exists is to motivate a character. If the reason why you have rape in your story is just to motivate another character, find something other than rape, is what the rule is for writers, from what I've heard from some people that are critical of that kind of writing.
And then long-time M. Night fans who sat in theaters on day one are gifted to the swelling of drums and strings as the Unbreakable theme plays, and we are
that 90s drum beat.
It's so
the drum
out of
machine
place.
with the strings over the top. I'm so happy that I called that out early in the first movie, because every time that comes up, I'm going to be like, we're in the Matrix, baby.
It's so out of place, but it also instantly, if you know what's going on, you're like, oh shit, is that? And then it's like, yes, it is. It's David Dunn. And we are in a shared universe now before credits roll.
Yep.
Which is pretty cool. And it was spoiled before I could see this. I was going to see it like the next week probably when I, read whatever clickbait article about it foolishly.
Yeah.
But I imagine for those first few who didn't know, who were fans of his, film catalog and familiar with Unbreakable, that was probably quite a thing, because it absolutely was not advertised, and it was just in there with no.
God, imagine going to the theater and not knowing that twist. Just imagine, years before, 15 years before, you saw Unbreakable and you're like, man, this is such a good movie. And it was just somewhere lodged in your memory. And then you went out and saw this psychological thriller about a person with DID. And then at the very end, it gets all supernatural and villainy. And you're like, what the fuck am I even watching? And then all of a sudden you see David Dunn and you're like, oh my God, out of nowhere. How the fuck did this, that had to be an incredible moment for I don't know, 50 people in the entire world.
Yeah, what a treat for the select few that it's probably thousands of people, but
but still, compared to the audience for this show, everybody else, it got picked up later. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people went back and saw it then later because they're like, oh, this is about that Unbreakable. Now I'm gonna go see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Your heart is pure. Rejoice!
So yeah, that's Split. the second chapter in the Unbreakable films trilogy.
What did you think of it? Did you enjoy it? Katie, what did you think? Did you enjoy this movie? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yeah, it made me watch the other ones. I mean, James McAvoy, for a movie, performances, everything like I hit on before, yeah, it's a great movie. Like, they made a great movie. In terms of M. Night Shyamalan movies, it's one of his better movies.
Yeah, for $9 million.
Yeah, cool. All right, Keith, what did you think? Did you like this movie? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yeah, thumbs up from me. I was excited to see it when it was out before I knew that it was Unbreakable, and then I got really excited once that was spoiled for me, and I watched it, and it was pretty good, and I was like, okay, yeah, pretty good movie. This kind of brought him back. He had been, I'm not going to criticize his entire film catalog, but he was on a downward slope, at least financially, box office returns. Up until this point, this was like a big spike back up for M. Night Shyamalan in his career.
Yeah, right on.
And it's a well-crafted, well-directed, for the most part, well-acted film. So yeah, thumbs up. What did you think of this movie film?
Me, I enjoyed it. I would give it a thumbs up for sure. Like I said, I would imagine that this is such like avant-garde art for us in a way. This is where the superhero movies should have gone. This is the direction they should have gone. Maybe the Marvel Cinematic Universe too, but this is so interesting, and I wish we had a whole like slew of Marvel property type stuff for this with TV shows and yada yada, because this universe is really cool and I'm really enjoying it. And I think it's such a risk to go 15 years or whatever between the movies and then come out with like a not a backdoor pilot,
sequel,
but a backdoor sequel. Yeah. Like that's incredible. And for the few people that this actually was a huge surprise, but knew about the previous material and had it fresh enough in mind that even just seeing an image of Bruce Willis in that outfit would immediately go back to, oh, that's done from that movie back in the, holy shit. What a huge, like those people, I'm so happy to see this kind of art exist just because like to a handful of people or the thousands of people like we discussed, this was an artistic explosion in their mind that they will never, like, it's one of those, this is a lifetime experience for them when that thing finally clicked in their head and they're like, holy shit, I think that's incredible.
Core memory.
Yeah, that's
memory
incredible
unlocked.
that like an artist created something like this. It's like, some would argue that the purest form of art is something that like not a lot of people see, that maybe your art form only truly affects like one or two people, but it affects them incredibly profoundly. And this is right along those lines. And I just think that's incredible. So yeah, definite thumbs up for me. This movie got really good reception, even though we've talked about the budget being $9 million. The box office draw was $278.5 million. So definitely was a huge success.
Yeah, so it made like 30 times its investment.
Holy shit.
Rotten Tomatoes has it sitting at around 78%. Average rating about 6.5 out of 10. Metacritic has it at 62 out of 100. So like not great, but I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know what I'd rate it on a 1 to 100 scale, but I think I'd give it a little bit higher than a 60.
Yeah,
I feel like it's something that could definitely be studied in a film studies class and like all kinds of film classes for both the good and the bad that it includes.
Yeah.
So I would definitely give it more than a 60 something.
So, and we talked a little bit about the music, and the composer for the first one was James Newton Howard. That was the guy that did Unbreakable, and he'd done like a lot of movies with Hans Zimmer and stuff like that. The person that they switched, and you noting that the music was good. There was a definite difference because the new person is West Dylan Thordson. They also did the final movie in this trilogy. They've also done movies like Joy, The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst. But it appears they don't have a lot under their belt, so this was kind of out of nowhere.
The music in this is extremely appropriate for what's on screen, whereas the music in Unbreakable was extremely appropriate for what was popular at the time, not necessarily what is happening on the screen.
And I remember the score for the first one stayed out of your way. Like the first one, we noticed that there were large portions where there wasn't anything, or the score didn't really stand up and stick up for itself, except for the drum machine and the strings, of course.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, the soundtrack came forward a little bit more, and it took control of some of the scenes and it added tension in a really good way. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of West Dylan Thordson, and I'm kind of sad to see that they made this soundtrack in 2016 and they've only got 2 credits since then. both a movie named UFO and then Glass, the final movie in this trilogy. And I'm going to be going into the final movie when we watch it with a definite ear to the music. All right. Well, let's see. So next week I could put us into the final movie in the series, Glass. Or I was thinking about going a different direction and making us watch a Disney musical. So
That's your call, bud.
it is my turn, and I enjoy having this power. And part of me wants to just sit at this part of the podcast.
Kelly
forever.
has stolen the light.
I have stolen the light, and I will keep the light from everybody else. And it's all mine. I'm going to go see our therapist and tell her that everything's fine. I'm not kidnapping anybody. I swear. I don't have.
Meanwhile, I'm frantically texting. I need you. I need you. I need you.
Honestly, after watching this last movie, I'm super interested to see how this ends out. And I want, like, this movie, I really enjoyed it, but I really miss seeing Dunn and Glass. I want to see them again. So hopefully they show up again in the final movie and I can see a little bit more of what happens when these three characters interact, I would assume, in some way. That sounds really cool to me. So I'd like to see the head.
So that's your choice? We're doing it?
Yeah, we're gonna do Glass next. Yeah. All right. So it was great fun reviewing this with you guys and looking into it. I appreciate it. Keith, Katie, both of you rock. Both of you have great opinions, and I appreciate it.
Shut up, baby. I know it.
Yeah. Obviously, thank you to anybody that's listening. We appreciate it. The more people to listen, the more incentive we have to make more and more of these things and talk to you about random stuff.
Yes, imaginary listener, you are the reason we do it.
They're not imaginary. There's a real person on the other side. They're a real human with real feelings. And when they grab the light, our cholesterol goes up.
I haven't seen them.
When they grab the light, my stress level goes up.
I'm just saying I haven't seen them is all.
Yeah, but just because you haven't seen anything doesn't mean it's not real, like oxygen,
Or God.
Okay, now we're getting into controversial territory.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, bye, everyone. Wait, we got to have Katie say goodbye. Katie,
I said bye if you would stop talking.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. Jeez.
I feel threatened.